So let's start by talking about Truth, your latest effort. What made you want to be a part of this film?
It was really easy.
Yeah.
First, it was an amazing script, and the guy who wrote it is a great writer. James Vanderbilt was directing it. Second, the cast was amazing. Cate Blanchett, are you guys familiar?
She's pretty good, yeah.
Kind of rising actress.
Yeah,
do great things.
Yeah.
And Robert Redford is someone who I liked movies when I was a kid, but then I saw All the President's Men in like 10th grade. I think we were studying Watergate or something, and
Yeah.
the teacher showed it to us, and I went, oh, I don't just like movies. I like whatever this is, like cinema or whatever. And then I got really into the films of the 70s. So then to do kind of a journalistic thriller
Right.
and know that Robert Redford was going to be in it was unbelievable. So it wasn't like, should I do this? It's like, where do I, sign up to
Right.
beg?
How was he to work with? I mean, you must have had high expectations going in based on your childhood adoration of him.
Yeah, I mean, it exceeded everything. What he's done for film, it's extraordinary. If you just look at like a couple of the movies he starred in, that's amazing. And then the movies he's directed, that he hasn't even been in. Like, I mean, he won the Academy Award for the first film he directed, Ordinary People.
Right.
Like Quiz Show is one of my favorite films. And then if you look at what he's done in terms of Sundance, and really think of how many films wouldn't exist if Sundance didn't exist, how many great directors wouldn't have kind of found their way. So what he's done for film in the, kind of late 20th century, early 21st century is like, it would be a different landscape if not for him.
So what did you learn from working with him?
I mean, he's really humble, which is crazy after everything I just said. You'd think he could do whatever he wants. He could, by the way, do whatever he wants, but he's, he said one day he said, hey, call me Bob, because I've been calling him Mr. Redford for like a couple days. And that alone was really cool. And then one night he said, do you want to go have dinner? And so I just sat there, and All the President's Men is my favorite film. Annie Hall is like a close second, but I love All the President's Men. So I, for 45 minutes, just asked him questions about but he's so involved with these films. I mean, he was such a big part of getting that film made. It really was indie film before there was indie film. He, I don't know, it was like some kind of interactive like software where you could ask any question about something you love and he had the answer. It was amazing. I can't actually tell. It was so much I learned from him.
Yeah. And Cate Blanchett, as you mentioned, also not chopped liver.
Yeah, it was.
What's she like? I mean, does she kind of stay in character between takes? Does she maintain the accent, or is she able to kind of drop it and turn it on? Or
not at all. She's totally fun. It's a surprise because I think I guess predominantly she's known from doing Elizabeth, right? Or that was the first time we got to know her. And then we're always seeing her at the Academy Awards, so she has kind of a royalty air about, which she should. She's so talented. But personally, she's really relaxed and actively trying to make you relax.
And you have great chemistry with Dennis Quaid in this film too, who you'd worked with before. On,
twice before, yeah. Traffic.
And Good Company,
yeah. Thank you.
Does that help to have worked with somebody before to kind of, do you have a kind of shorthand with them? Or?
Oh, yeah. Well, certainly the kids on 70s I worked with so much. Mm-hmm. Even now, I feel like if we went in to do a scene on something, we'd immediately know how to do it. And I feel that way with Dennis, too. Some of these scenes, they were good, but I don't think they were meant to play. The stuff I had with him, like, especially that last scene I had with him.
Right, yeah.
This is great. He's a great guy.
Yeah. So you're playing a real person, correct? Your character is.
Yeah.
Did you meet the real person you were playing? Did you want to, or?
I didn't want to. I was so excited to get a film where I could do a lot of research. Sometimes you're doing a fictional film, and it's kind of like harder to get into. But on a film I did a couple of years ago, Too Big to Fail, mm-hmm. I had met the person I was playing, and he was a great guy, but it really colored my performance. All of a sudden I thought, should I be doing an impression of him or what? I mean, like Mike Smith, the general public didn't know that character very well. So I thought, it really just kind of messed with my head. So I thought, I want to know everything about him without meeting him. So I got to talk to Mary Mapes, who wrote the book, and Dan Rather was on set. and the script itself was more research than the book. James had done his own kind of level of research, and then I kind of asked Mary, am I getting kind of the essence of the character? And she was into it. And so then at the very end, I emailed him kind of apologizing that, for all time, he'll be linked to the kid from that 70s show, whatever.
And what was his response? Was he?
He was really nice about it, but what can you do? We
Yeah.
already made the film. So.
Yeah, yeah. Did you know much about the real story? I mean, it was interesting to see the film, how it played out. I remembered some of it, but not all of it. I mean, how much did you know, and how much did you have to learn before you went into filming?
Well, it's funny. I was making In Good Company with Dennis when the story came out, and I hosted SNL, and they did a sketch on it with Daryl Hammond. And I think I'm like, at least how most of my friends were before this film came out, which is, what happened there?
Right.
Like something happened. Yeah, what happened, Dan? Rather, it was no one ever told the full story. It's news about news, so it's it's kind of weird reporting for the public. And I was happy to. I think these are the kind of films. If you're going to do about something real, it shouldn't be something that we all know everything about. So, yeah, I loved reading the book and reading the script, and then being able to go out to dinner with Mary and Dan and talk about it. As an actor, you get to do that. You get to go to each job and learn a little bit about something new each time.
Yeah. Well, Dan's a great storyteller too, so that
Yep.
was fun to.
Yeah, a lot of cool colloquialisms too. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning of your career now.
Whoa. So I thought this was just about truth. I didn't know this was a career. My apologies.
When did you know that you wanted to be an actor?
It's funny. I just was on another show I was telling you about where they just brought a tape of me in first grade playing Peter Pan. I mean, it was really embarrassing. I'm like, I got a crow. And it's not like what I'm going for now. But they showed it on the show. I guess they went and interviewed my first grade teachers. And I mean, it was really cool to see. So I loved acting in like high school plays all the way up through high school. But I honestly didn't think it was something you could do with your life, or I didn't know how to do it. So I stopped acting in college, and you know what? There were a couple plays I wasn't even really that good in. But one play in high school, in this boarding school I went to, the girl who did the sets, her parents were big-time producers. They'd been head writers on SNL, and they wrote like Tommy Boy and Wayne's World. And they came up to me after the play. I guess they liked it. It was a weird play. I mean, we changed a lot about it, so maybe they liked kind of the originality. But
What was the play?
it was a funny thing happened away at the Forum, which is
Okay.
a great play, right?
Yeah.
But we were just, I don't know, the drama teacher didn't show up that much, to be honest, so we kind of changed whatever we wanted, and I think they just thought, oh, this is weird, this is not like a normal high school play. And so they said, when you're in Hollywood next year, because I was going to USC, they said, can we call you? And I didn't know what they meant. So I said, oh, yeah, babe, like Hollywood. Let's do lunch. And then they did call me, and it was a crazy experience because I didn't really, to be honest, I didn't have access to programs like this, or I hadn't really ever heard, I didn't even have YouTube, so you couldn't see interviews with actors unless you kind of happened upon them.
Yeah. So that would have been Boddy and Terry Turner, who
That's
were
right.
the creators of that 70s show, and cast you in the lead role, Eric Foreman, with no real professional acting experience.
Yeah.
How did that feel? I mean, was that a lot of
So
pressure?
this is the worst part of the SAG Q&A, right? Sorry. Like, I've worked really hard to try to make up for... Every one of my friends who's an actor is like, geez,
Well, I mean, I was saying, I met you when you were first doing press for that 70s show, and all you guys were like babes in the woods. I mean, you were really...
The difference being like Ashton and Laura were like models. Like they were successful models at the time.
Yeah.
Like they were like, how did you get the role? Like, how did this happen for you? Like, I don't know. Someone saw me in a play or something. But it was, that first year was, my learning trajectory was like inverted. I mean, I have never again will life be that, like everything will be that new. Because it wasn't just, I remember doing the first scene in the pilot, and the director came up and said, like, good. Like that's, I mean, good. I was probably terrible, but he was just trying to give me positive feedback. He was good, good. Here's the thing. You didn't face any of the cameras. So I said, okay, just you got to turn out this way. Like it was that bad at the beginning. And then the good thing about whenever I meet an actor, a young actor who's on a sitcom, who says like, I can't wait to get off a sitcom. Maybe they say that to me because I've been in some films. I can't wait to get off a sitcom and get into some films. And I think they're just idiots because it's the greatest training ground you can have. There's live audience reaction like this, and then there's also a filmic element. Mm-hmm. And when you suck, which you do at the beginning, you can come back the next week and try again. And, it's kind of a batting average. There's no specific episode that has to be great. And, after a while, especially that show, because I was learning with a bunch of other kids. So it was like some great kind of boot camp / graduate school program.
And you keep in touch with those guys, right? I mean, you feel like you kind of went to college with them or something, right? I mean,
the greatest thing about that show is that they're all doing great.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, legitimately, like Wilmer has 2 shows on TV right now, and Laura's on Orange is the New Black, and she's like doing great work on Orange is the New Black. Yeah. And Ashton.
What happened to Ashton? Yeah, did he mount anything?
No, Ashton and Danny are doing a show together. Right. Doing a 4-camera. It's gonna be on Netflix, and Mila's. Like Black Swan. Yeah. Like I've seen Black Swan in the theater, but honestly, with all those kids, I was never surprised because you could see it. They were all. It was just a special group. Yeah. And we all kind of learned from each other too, which is cool.
We also had some great older actors in the cast too.
Kurt Smith, Deborah Jo Rupp,
and Tommy Chong, and
Tommy Chong's he's like a genius in terms of comic timing.
Yeah. I mean, did that help you? I mean, were they kind of parental type figures to you in any way?
I would say for the first season, all the kids were leaning really heavily on the adult characters. I mean, I also remember like Kurt would like teaching us how to shave at one point. Like that's for real. It's like, no, you get out of the shower and your whiskers are, like you can get them back. So it was also to have kind of a homey vibe, and then when when I went to do my first film, it was very different and very challenging. And then you could come back after that summer and be on the show. And so whenever someone slams being on a sitcom, I think, oh, that's terrible. Like, what a great opportunity.
Yeah. Well, it was also a show obviously set in the 70s, as the title implies. And you were born in 1978, so you don't really remember the 70s per se, right?
No, a lot of it felt like when we were doing it that it was like the costumes and the setting took care of that. Mm-hmm. And what I love and what I tell actors, especially young actors, when they're saying like, how do I get an agent or how do I get live life, like, because really what I found after we got better at doing it, that it was really like things I wanted to say about high school. I just come out of high school, so and a lot of the times we were going through the same things, kind of the characters were going through. So, it's, good to have some stuff to say.
Yeah. You also had some amazing guest stars come through that show too. I mean, did you? What was it like to show up at work and then Betty White is there? These like sitcom.
Betty White played my grandmother.
Yeah.
Oh my God! I mean, yeah, it's a. She was Tom Poston was my grandfather, I think. Like those two together, Betty. I noticed this sometimes with like really, really great actors who had been on multiple great sitcoms who were kind of guest starring on our show, is that they'd be like, you go like, are they even into this? Like they seem like kind of they're walking through their paces during the week. And what I realized is they were smart enough. Something that's interesting about sitcom is you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday rehearsal. So you do not want to. At the beginning, I would show up Monday like I'm ready to shoot this, and then you gotta kind of hold on to that performance, and you wind up losing it kind of by Friday. So those guys would kind of be like, they'd be so easygoing about it. And then Friday night, they would, especially Betty, she would just slay. Yeah.
She's amazing.
She'd murder out there. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah. The sort of the trademark scenes of that 70s show where you were sitting in the circle and the camera would kind of whip around, and the conceit was that you were partaking of illegal substances. But what was it like shooting those scenes? I mean, was that were they able to cut between the takes, or did you have to get it right the first time?
I think they might have wound up hiding edits in there.
Yeah.
But sometimes we'd get it all the way. We'd shoot it all the way through every time.
Yeah.
What was funny is in the pilot, you guys wouldn't even, it was like a young crowd, you'd never know. Like in 1998, that was like really taboo. Like now it's like legal in California. Like, but at the time we had to cut a little bit out of the pilot.
Yeah.
Of us wafting smoke out the door or something. But I remember thinking that was a smart idea to put something that was just edgy enough
Right.
in the pilot that people kind of, I don't think it was really about that as the show went on, but.
Yeah. So was that what you got your SAG card for, that 70s show, or do you remember?
Is that what I got
your SAG card?
Oh my God, yes. I mean, yeah. And I remember that feeling like, I'm an actor, like officially, check this out.
Yeah. Yeah. So when did you feel like you had made it as an actor? I mean, was it...
I'm still waiting for that.
Yeah?
Yeah. No, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe when the show got picked up or something, because I thought really that first season, it was not a very popular show. And we were on after The Simpsons and before The X-Files, and we were the bad part of that sandwich, And then when it started kind of picking up, I felt like, okay, we got like a 2-season pickup or something. So that was great. And then, yeah, I don't think there ever really is a time where you go like, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You did leave the show before the last season, though, and then you came back for the last episode. What was that like, having been away and then coming back for the finale?
Well, I was filming Spider-Man 3, and I had this weird reaction, which was because I was like kind of guest starring on another thing where they had set up a show. And they'd done episode 1 and 2. And then I went back, and it was sad, but I thought I'll see all these people again. Like, you're trying to convince yourself not to be that sad. I'll see them all again. And I was sad. I put on like a Coldplay song on the way home. It was like getting sad kind of. But like, it wasn't really that sad. I saw everyone for dinner after that. And then I watched and then I'd be on the Spider-Man set, and it was weird. It was like, oh man, I'm in it's like someone opened up a portal, and I'm in I was at the Daily Bugle, and like, there's Tobey Maguire, here's Peter Parker. It was like unbelievable. It's like, oh, I'm in this imaginary world. And then I watched the finale of 70s Show, and I got so sad. It like really all hit me.
Yeah.
And I realized like, oh, I'm never going to see those characters again. And then I thought, oh, and this is, like I'm in now another world, which is the Spider-Man portal or something. But, that'll close at some point,
Yeah, yeah. Well, you started making movies before you left the show, though. Your first film was Traffic, correct?
That's right.
Pretty good way to start.
Thank you.
And you had been a fan of Steven Soderbergh's prior to that as well, right?
Big time, yeah.
So how did you go about landing that role? It was a very different kind of part than what we were used to seeing you playing on TV.
Yeah, that was a tough audition, and I think he hadn't seen that 70s Show, so he had no idea, which I think that would have hurt me because it was just so different. And I do remember once Traffic came out, being at the Golden Globes with Erica Christensen, who was terrific as the girl in Traffic, who I kind of get hooked on Smack, and everyone was coming up to her like, oh my God, Traffic, amazing. And no one was talking. I don't think they knew I was the dude. I had to grow my hair back out like the 70s. And I remember thinking, oh, this is terrible. I should have done like a comedy or something that, was more like 70s. And then later I started to realize, oh, this is, for me, my agents hate this because, it's more lucrative to play the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
But to me, playing something different every time is... Like I played a total bad guy before this character, and I play kind of not a great guy in the movie I'm doing right now, which is after this. And to me, variety is the spice. Everyone's different, but I need to like change it up all the time. And that was the beginning of me kind of figuring out, oh, that really keeps it alive for me. Yeah.
Did you do any research to play a heroin addict?
I did. I don't think he was a heroin addict. I think he was a methadone addict.
Oh, okay.
But sure, I did tons of heroin. That's just part of it. No, yeah, that was the beginning of me. I was really scared about doing research, and I'm sure you guys all have your own stories about researching roles, but that was also a scary thing to research too. To go to a methadone clinic and meet people, and what that did for me was once I was on set and using all that, I thought, oh, this is great. And so now when I get a role like this, and I didn't know that much about what happened with Dan Rather, and honestly, I don't know that much about being a journalist. I look at it as more of an opportunity, like I'm going to be a private investigator and, really get into this is my thing for the next 4 months.
Yeah. And how was Michael Douglas? I mean, he had to kind of rough you up a bit in the film, as I recall.
Yeah, my first day was with him, and he was yelling at me in this scene. And it's so funny. It's whatever you just saw in that clip with Robert Redford. I couldn't believe I was even meeting Michael Douglas. And that first day, I have to yell at him actually. And then I think Steven Soderbergh said, "Why don't you yell back at Topher?" But without telling me. So and it's not used in the movie, but he yelled. But I think my reaction to it is used.
Yeah.
So he lost it on me, and I made some weird face, and then that face is what he used. But it was great. I never shot a scene outdoors before, so I'd done 2 seasons of 70 Show, but I'd never done anything like a movie. So I'm still sad it was with Steven Soderbergh, because you go, man, you want to work with him when you've had some experience, but also it's such a great way to kind of lose your virginity too.
Yeah. Well, you have worked with him a couple times since then, the Ocean's 11 and
That's
Ocean's
right,
12. So what is his style like on the set? I mean, he seems like such a cerebral guy. I mean, is he to take a very intellectual approach to
Steven?
acting? Yeah.
The greatest thing about Steven is he comes from, look, there are many great things, but he comes from documentary filmmaking. So he just wants to capture it. I think he really believes in the casting process. And then I remember, because it was my first day shooting a scene, he didn't say anything to me, and I kind of thought, I think I went up to him and I said, Steven, should I, how do you want me to do it? And he was like, oh, God, I don't know. And I'm okay. And then I realized what a gift that was to, he also, you understand, he's filming it. He's got the camera on his shoulder. So he'll kind of move the camera, and he'll jump cut in his scene so he can just move the camera and say, hey, man, actually do it this way. And it's amazing to have the director write. I mean, it's a really intimate, cool experience.
Yeah. And you play a version of yourself in the Ocean's 11 and Ocean's 12.
Well,
movies.
I don't think so. I mean, it's the worst possible version.
The worst
of myself,
possible version of yourself. What went into your decision to do that? I mean, were you concerned that people were going to think this was really how you are?
I had the opposite concern, which was because I guess they were doing Post on Traffic, and Steven said, hey, why don't you come do this thing in Ocean's. It's funny, I'm doing a movie right now with Brad Pitt. So we were talking about this the other day, where I showed up and I thought, if you're playing yourself and you're playing yourself like a good person, you must be a jerk, right? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if you're playing yourself like the most wonderful guy, people are like, what is he hiding? But I thought, maybe if I go opposite, it'll be really funny. So I thought, but they had these other actors in the scene who I'm not sure got that memo. So I remember I grew out my beard all summer, because I always thought all these young actors always had weird patchy facial hair. I'm so real, I got a beard. And then I was looking around at all of them, and I was like, oh, we all did it. We're all on the same page. And they started shaving their beards. And I was like, oh, I'm actually going to play you before we started the scene,
Right.
But then it was cool. He let us just kind of improv, and a lot of those jokes came out of just and it was great. It's Clooney and
right.
Brad Pitt. And
right.
It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've worked with some amazing people. I mean, again, early films for you. Mona Lisa Smile, working with Julia Roberts.
I had to take dance lessons with Julia Roberts.
Yeah? How was that?
That was terrifying. I remember I stepped on her toes once, and she was like, it hurt. And I was like, sorry, Julia Roberts. But she was really nice about it. I did it's interesting working with people like that when you're young and you've just come out of kind of idol worshiping people in your teens, and now you're hanging out with them. It's weird.
And that was another period piece. That was the 50s.
Right.
Do you like doing movies like that, where you kind of get into the era and costume and hair? And
I like it more than doing modern day stuff.
What do you like about it?
Well, I think it helps acting, right? The more you have, in this, no one ever saw it, but I wore boots, but I always had my shoes untied.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it helped the character. Who knows? But I walk different, and he's a pretty grungy guy.
Right. And then you worked with Laura Linney on PS.
She's
some
amazing.
Love scenes with her, I think.
She took my screen virginity. Yeah.
So first of all, she's amazing. So I'm jealous.
She's an amazing actress. Yeah.
What was it like shooting your first love scene?
Well, man, she was. She'd been acting longer than I had, and I think she'd had done more of those scenes than I had for sure. God, I must have been 23 or something. But I went to her trailer and knocked on her door and was like, "Hey, Laura, can I touch your breasts?" It's so awkward. And she was so great about it. She was like, "Oh, whatever. Like, yeah, come on. Like, let's." But somehow that is what the scene is about too, kind of a little bit.
Yeah, right. And then we mentioned earlier In Good Company, which is a great film with you and Dennis Quaid. Your character could have been very unsympathetic. He's this younger guy who comes in and kind of, a bit of a jerk. But how do you kind of ride that line when you're playing a character like that who, could be unappealing, but at the same time is one of the lead characters, and you have to have some level of sympathy or empathy for him?
I swear to you, I've never thought about that. And I think it's led to some performances I do aren't sympathetic. But I believe if you read the script and it speaks to you and you think it's good and you trust the director, I mean, Paul Weitz is a great director and a great writer. I think you just got to kind of do what you think is right. And sometimes it tips over into you being a bad guy, and that's cool too.
Yeah.
I really never thought about it. Yeah. But I did have sympathy for the character.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you had another nice love interest in that film, Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
She was kind of up and coming at the time. Not bad, not bad day at work, I would think.
She's great. She was 19 when we shot that film. And she had just been nominated for, I was meeting with her because she was going to do it, but she was coming off 2 Golden Globe nominations the same year. And I was like, I think I was 6 years older than her. So, and I remember I was so intimidated, but she was 19, it's crazy. But she's just a great, she's like a great comedian. She should do more comedy. Like, she was really funny and in a very quiet, cool way. I really, both her and Dennis, it was like a very nice, easy chemistry with all of us.
Yeah. And we mentioned Spider-Man 3. That was a big film, obviously. I mean, when you work on a big special effects-driven, action superhero blockbuster like that, does it feel like a completely different kind of job than any other kind of acting, or is it just a matter of skill?
It did. On that one, I don't know how other ones are, because I certainly haven't been No, I guess I was in Interstellar for a little bit. But that felt much more personal. At least the way Chris Nolan's figured it out. It feels like a very small indie film. He's got a lot of kind of tricks to make it feel like, even though you're filming on IMAX or whatever, but he puts you in a place that it really felt like it was kind of an indie film. On Spider-Man 3, that was, they'd already had 2 hits, and they say, success has many fathers, and there were a lot of people interested in how that film did, for good reason. You know what I mean? It really is a big thing to Sony that year or whatever. So I never got to really perhaps Toby and Sam on the first movie really got to kind of explore and find what that was. But I realized as I arrived, I was kind of guest starring in the third one. You know?
But you were a fan of the comic books and the characters.
Oh, and I loved the first 2. I was so happy to be cast in it.
Yeah.
And I loved working with Sam and Thomas Hayden Church and Toby and Kirsten. I mean, they were great. It's a great cast of actors. It's like I was saying to someone earlier. It's like they're running a small country or something. I mean, it's so much is going, and they're spending what a small country would spend,
right,
in a year. So it was so huge, and I was just a little part of it.
But in doing that film, though, you had to do a lot of physical preparation. I mean, you weren't known for action movies, and was it hard to convince them that you were?
Yeah, I mean,
that kind of thing?
They had the thing down, and I went into training, and that was the first time I didn't even see if it was possible to gain weight. I'm like, it's hard for me, but I went into the gym and did it, and And it was, I think I was up like 30 pounds or something at the end. And, that stuff's fun. I mean, to me, I grew up loving movies, like these big blockbuster movies in the 80s. So, and it's a cool kind of acting exercise too. Sometimes when you're behind all green screen.
Yeah.
Remember one time they said, now someone's throwing a bus at you, catch the bus. I said, just so real quick, like, how do I catch it? Like, is it like overhead? Like,
Yeah.
That's cool. So it's total imagination.
Right. And you also made Predators around that time too. And was that kind of a little?
That was a couple of years later.
Yeah. But you like doing the action kind of sci-fi genre stuff as well?
No, I like it all.
Yeah.
I really do. And like I said, it's not something that's popular with my agents because it's better if you kind of find one thing and repeat that, and then you get known as that commodity. But I have known actors who do that who are really bored with acting, which is to me so sad because there's so many opportunities with acting. You can go to so many different places. I mean, literally, physically, and then you can go to different places in your mind. And and that's one of the great things about starting on a sitcom is, you make some money.
Yeah.
So I always thought it would be, but the people who think I'm a jerk that I tried out for one thing and got it, I hope that they know that, like I'm not making as much as I can now because I want to, I want everything to be something new and I'm learning something new. It keeps me always like really, like I love it. I love it more now than I ever have.
Yeah. Well, you really have mixed it up. I mean, especially in recent years, because you also did Valentine's Day, which is a big star-driven rom-com. Did you cross paths with Julia Roberts on that again, or were you not really in the same?
I did. Yeah, I stepped on one of her toes right away. It's me.
Did you feel like you were in a different place? I mean, meeting up with her again?
I did. I mean, she was in the Ocean's 11 movies that I was
yeah.
in, so I'd seen her a little bit. She's so wonderful. You realize all these people that you meet that are like the CEOs of acting, like Brad and Julia and George Clooney. And I mean, I'm not just them, like I've worked with a lot of great people, like Dennis Quaid is like that. Like no one has time for BS. Like they're too busy making great art, and working really, really hard, and then also promoting stuff so that it gets seen. So it's usually, I always find actors that I don't respect as much cause the most problems.
Yeah.
Are the biggest jerks.
Yeah. And you've also gotten involved behind the scenes as well. I want to ask about Take Me Home Tonight, which I really enjoyed, a film that you co-wrote the script for.
I have a story by credit. I wasn't a co-writer.
Well, all right. And the writers were people you'd worked with on that 70s show,
That's right?
Jeff and Jackie Filgo.
That's right, yeah.
And that was set in the 80s, kind of in a way. What was your inspiration to kind of get involved on that level, particularly in that film?
Well, I have the same way I like to float around in acting. Like I have no design on having a production company or I marvel at people who can do that just because the industry is so fickle and I don't know. It's hard enough to act well in something, I think, but to then design a whole thing. But I had an idea with some writers that I really respected and I really enjoyed doing it. And what was the best part was casting. So like being on the other side of in a casting room. And I read with every single actor. Like, when you go in there and someone's like, and then one time someone said like, I think we've seen enough. And I was like, no, he's going to do it to the end. You know what I mean? Like, because I remember thinking, getting sent out of the room before I was done or whatever. And I just had it on I did a film called Opening Night that we're just in post on now. Mm-hmm. And that was another thing where I met a director I really liked, and he had a great idea, and we found some writers. And so if something comes together, I'm happy to, champion it like that.
We've also been mixing it up with movies and TV, too. I mean, you did Too Big to Fail, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
You were on The Muppets.
That's right, yeah. And the thing I'm doing right now is, even though it's with Brad Pitt, it's going to Netflix.
Amazon, yeah. I mean, is it all just the same to you at this point? Is it all just good work? It doesn't matter if it's what size screen it's going to debut on?
To me, it's really about director.
Mm-hmm.
So this is David Michod. This one I'm doing now called War Machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did Animal Kingdom. If you guys seen it in Rover.
Right.
And I don't care if he's making I did a thing with Drake Doremus a couple of years ago that was only on the internet. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. It was one of my favorite things I've been a part of.
Yeah.
I don't care where it is now. I really want to work with the with directors I respect.
Yeah. Well, you've also worked with some legendary actors in recent years, too. I wanted to ask you about The Big Wedding. You worked with De Niro and Diane Keaton. You mentioned Annie
right.
Hall, one of your favorite
That's right.
films. What was it like to be with Annie Hall then?
It was amazing. Like, also they had been in like, I think they said on the first day, she's like, I haven't seen you since The Godfather 2 Rap Party. I was like, whoa, like, here we go. It wasn't Robin Williams was in it and Susan Sarandon.
Yeah.
It was a pretty heady, like kind of when we broke for lunch and we all sat around eating. I was sitting there. It's great. Every project is an opportunity. I mean, I sound like a Boy Scout or something, but every you really get to learn something every time. And, once in a while, the best part I think about working with people like that is once in a while they like just drop the biggest piece of knowledge on you and not even know it. They'll just say, oh yeah, that's funny. When we made Reds, we did the, you're going like, whoa, what? Like, and I said this in another interview and there was an audience and everyone kind of went like, oh, I said like, I only want to work with people better than me. Like I want to be like the worst person on set. And I didn't mean it in some self-effacing way. I really like when you are in movies like this, like Truth, look, you won't be like them, but maybe a little bit of them will kind of through osmosis, like rub off on you a little bit.
Yeah. And what was the experience like with Richard Gere on The Double? Because you were really...
kind of same thing, yeah. He's such a great actor and such a wonderful guy, and we really got a lot of stuff to do together in that movie.
Yeah. And I think somebody also asked about The Calling, which you made again with Susan Sarandon and Ellen Burstyn. I mean, these are like...
There was a day where I was with Ellen and Susan.
Yeah.
And I was like, remember that song on Schoolhouse Rock? It's like, one of these things is not like the
other. And the movies you have coming up sound great, too. I mean, opening night is kind of a musical. Is that right?
It's a musical, but it's like a hard R. I've never seen anything like it. Like, it's really cool. And Isaac Rentz directed it. He's like a big music video director. And it is really cool. Takes place here in New York. And it was just a blast. Taye Diggs. It's a lot of people like Anne Heche is in it. And Rob Riggle's really funny in it. But Taye Diggs gives this performance that is like next level. He's really great.
That's great. Do you sing in it?
Very little.
Yeah?
I'm the least of anyone, yeah.
Did it take you back to a funny thing happened on the way of the Forum days?
Well, let me answer you with a song. No.
And then War Machine, which we've mentioned, is the Brad Pitt film that you're making for Amazon. It's a political satire, correct?
Yeah, it's a little Dr. Strangelove-ish. It's great. I mean, I'm in love with it. And I'm really in love with David Michod, this director, who's just fantastic. I'm here for only 5 days. I was in like a Black Hawk helicopter like 4 days ago over Abu Dhabi. It's cool. It's a really cool film. And Brad has a performance in it that is like really next level. He's amazing in it. So
what is it like shooting in a place like Abu Dhabi? I mean, is it completely disorienting to be coming back and forth between New York and...
Yes. It's it's interesting. I mean, I'm in fatigues. It's the first time I've ever done a full... This is why my haircut is so terrible, by the way. I apologize. It's like kind of they shave the sides of it. But the cast is unbelievable. Like, besides Brad, it's Sir Ben Kingsley and every young actor in it is... It's like... without going through everyone's names, it's like the young guy from Brooklyn, the young guy from Carol, the young guy from Dope, the young guy from The Revenant, the young guy from Truth, whatever. Yeah. The semi-young guy from Truth.
So do you feel like you're in a position now where you can give advice to people like that? I mean, that you've been around long enough that you have some wisdom to share?
Not really. More about, I just got engaged. So more like dating. Thank you. More about like some of these kids are younger, so I'm like, don't worry, like, you're allowed to have fun, but you got to shape up at some point. Yeah. That kind of advice. Yeah.
Well, you were saying backstage though, you were lucky that we didn't really have quite the same level of internet scrutiny when you were in your 20s, and I mean, you got to be careful these days.
Yes.
Everyone has a cell phone, and
Everyone has a cell phone, and the things I was doing back then.
So you mentioned auditioning with Take Me Home Tonight. I mean, do you mind auditioning? Do you like auditioning in any way? What's the... the
You know,
best?
I auditioned for this.
Did you?
I not only auditioned, there was an auditioning. They weren't seeing anyone. I think they wanted someone much more famous than me for the role. And I knew I wasn't going to get it. I mean, I read the script and I went, this is too good. You know, it's like, this is the script you get sent from your agents that you don't get. You know, it's like Cate Blanchett and Robert Redford. And like I said, it had a political kind of journalist thriller vibe. And this is my favorite kind of movie. So I said, what can I do? And my agent said, literally nothing. And except if you want to make a tape. There weren't even sides for it. So I just kind of flipped through the script and found the scene at the end, what would have been the hardest scene. I go, well, whatever the scene is they think I can't handle or whatever. So I made first I had to get off book, which took me a couple days because it's a long scene.
This is the meltdown kind of when you get fired and spoiler
And then
alert.
my poor fiance, my aforementioned fiance, was sitting behind the camera. I'm yelling at her, like I was crying at one point. I mean, it was like embarrassing. And you know, the beautiful thing about Vimeo is, you know, it got in front of the director like a day later, and then I was headed to Australia. And I don't know if I would have done that at some points in my career, but that is something I would say to someone who's younger or a younger version of me in the industry is like, you know, ego's the killer. You know, you just, I mean, I'm going to do it on set anyway, you know?
Right.
Might as well show I can do it.
Yeah. I mean, to look at your IMDb page, it seems like you've worked nonstop, you know, since you were cast in that '70s show. But I'm sure there must have been a few slow periods in there. I mean, how do you deal with it when you are in between gigs? I mean, do you just kind of have faith that something's going to come along, or?
You know, there was a time where I just took some time off because it was, to be honest, this stuff actually the promoting of the thing was even like more new to me and kind of weirder than acting. And you know what? To be honest, I came here to New York and I lived in New York for a little while, and it was the greatest thing to just watch theater and have some like kind of real life experiences. And then now, that's why sometimes I produce, and certainly I've worked on things that then don't get produced. You know, they don't make it all the way there. I did the couple scenes I had in Interstellar. I did with Jessica Chastain, and she hit it a little bit later. I mean, she was even telling me at some points. This isn't like I'm telling tales out of school. I think she's talked about this in interviews. Yeah. She like wouldn't get pilots like for like bad shows. Mm-hmm. Jessica Chastain,
right?
Like couldn't get. You know, she's such an amazing actress, and I think she told me she was adapting Hamlet in her free time, which is such a great idea. You know what I mean? She just had an idea, mm-hmm. and she wouldn't let people tell her that she couldn't work, and then eventually it bled into work she was getting paid for.
Right. So you mentioned you look for directors first in terms of choosing projects. What do you look for in a director? What's the most important element that
he wants me to be in the film? No, no. I mean, it's. I used to think it was more the script, mm-hmm. And I'd read a script and it'd be great, and then I'd think, all right, the director's good, and now I think it's more the director. I think that's really the lens. I mean, that's the person who's telling you the story. Having now worked with great directors, I go, oh, it's more the director than anything. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I mean, like when I did Valentine's Day, I thought this guy's one of the greatest rom-com directors of all time.
Gary Marshall, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it's easy when it's someone like Chris Nolan. You go like, just to be on set with him for a couple weeks is amazing.
Yeah. Is there a performance or an actor that you've worked with who's been particularly inspirational to you that really kind of transformed you afterwards?
I would say Dennis, in the experience we had doing In Good Company. I mean, I met him a little bit during Traffic, mm-hmm. but then to work with, I mean, I'd worked with like Julia Roberts or Brad Pitt or, you know, the people that were intimidating. And Dennis was certainly really intimidating. I think I was only 25 when I got that film. And something about going beyond the formality of knowing, you know, shooting a couple weeks with someone and really spending months with them and finding the characters and then when we were doing these scenes, it was so easy. So I would say working with him.
Yeah, that last scene you have together in Truth is really great when he's saying goodbye to you, and you
Yeah.
just feel like the history, of these.
Yeah, and it's real. We were hanging out on set, and it was like the same thing at the airport after that. It's like,
Yeah.
goodbye, man. Like, I
Right.
just love working with him so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. What about other actors that you watched growing up, or or actors from earlier eras? Are there ones that particularly influenced you, or you?
Oh, you mean ones I haven't worked with? I
Yeah.
see. Sorry. I didn't.
No, this is a follow-up question.
Jimmy Stewart to me is it. Like
Yeah.
when I saw It's a Wonderful Life, I thought that's everything. Like that's everything in that performance. It's like George Gibbs, and it's also like I heard that he'd come back from war when he did that.
Yeah.
So it was like Jimmy Stewart, but with this new kind of edge. But the beginning is like Jimmy Stewart that you knew from like Philadelphia Story, and the end is like this new Jimmy Stewart.
Right.
I think that performance, and I don't think he's trying to be likable at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think he really, especially then. The film flopped, I think, actually.
Yeah.
But that, oh my God, that performance in that movie.
So, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten from another actor?
Usually it's not someone saying like, kid, dress your best or whatever the, or whatever the thing. I think it's like watching people. Like I'll give you the first thing I remember going, that's a great actor who just told me a great thing, was on Traffic. Steven Soderbergh came up to give me a piece of direction, which is rare because he kind of really, like I was saying, let people do their thing. And it wasn't an insult that he was giving a direction, but it was, you don't want that guy coming up to you giving you too many directions because that's not his jam. And Michael Douglas just kind of meandered away. And I thought, I don't know, he's like the star kind of the film. Wouldn't you think he'd want to at least hear it and then maybe weigh in? And I realized, oh, what a great thing to say, oh, that's your time alone with the director. You're creating your... So a lot of it has been kind of watching, and so all the way up through this film, I would see even now, watching Brad Pitt do his thing, it's such an interesting character he's playing, and watching him kind of attack this character, you should always, wouldn't that be terrible if you were like the oldest, best person?
What's going to happen eventually, probably.
Not the best, but I might be the oldest.
I don't know about that. Well, we do have a lot of young actors in the audience here. What's the best piece of advice you can give from your experience about how to handle yourself?
Don't take it from me. What do I know? But I would say I'm a firm believer in really living your life and really having something to say once you get there. It's easy to be so ambitious about acting because it's such a great job to have. But I know people who have been very ambitious, gotten there, and then they kind of don't have anything to say. So that's something you can do before you become an actor, and something while you're an actor you can say, what kind of actor do I want to be? What do I want to be known for?
Yeah. We have some questions from the audience. I'm going to run through
sweet.
here. The first question is, many established actors do low-budget indie films. What advice can you give indie filmmakers about approaching such an actor for a project? What do you like to see, and what is a red flag in terms of
repeat the
a low-budget indie film? What kind of advice would you give about approaching an actor, a well-known actor like yourself, for a small-budgeted film?
Raise your hand. Who asked that? All right, good question. First step, you did it. Pitch me right now. No. I would say I heard Dylan Kidd, who I worked with in P.S., which is that Laura Linney film.
Yeah.
I think went up to Campbell Scott in a it says more about Campbell Scott and how awesome he is, but he showed him Roger Dodger, which is a great film, and said, hey, I have a script, would you read it, sir? And Campbell said, I'll read it, but is this good? You know what I mean? He said, yes. But I thought that was such a good question. But I don't think there are any rules. I think it's the Wild West. Hollywood, it's always kind of been like that. But I think the weird thing about Hollywood is it always looks official. Even now, this looks official. We're up here, but there's no rules. So whatever the way. I've certainly seen people miss. Go up to someone and say, "Are you ready? Okay, it's a dark night." They start pitching the film. A shot rings out. And you're standing there in the rain. The guy's like, "All right, goodbye." But I do think, Dylan in that instance was very respectful, and I think he'd seen Campbell in there a couple times, and I mean, everyone's looking to do great stuff. I don't think there are any rules.
Yeah.
You know what? With the internet, there's kind of no excuse, because people, I have a better camera on my phone now than,
Right.
so there's lots of different ways to get your ideas out there.
Right. I think you might have kind of answered this earlier, but what advice would you give your younger self to do differently the second time around?
I would say, it's kind of the same thing. It's that there's no rules. Like for this, I think a couple of years ago, I might have said, I don't know, should I make a tape? I mean, they don't even want me for that role.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think like, well, how can they know what they want? If they don't think I can do it, like it's on me to show it to them. So that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Was there a eureka moment for you when you said to yourself, aha, I have to help produce my own projects?
No, and the kind of producer I am is not like super in control. Like I just love, what I love is getting someone who's talented, a director or a writer, and saying, all right, these are smaller films, but it wouldn't make it into the end zone if I didn't help, so like that feels good, like it was on the 1 yard line, but you got to, by attaching yourself, being a part of it, you got to make it real.
Right. If you could be cast as a superhero or villain again, who would it be and why?
Pass. I don't know. I think it would definitely be more in villain territory.
Yeah.
It's more fun. Yeah. I just did this movie, American Ultra, and there was nothing redeemable about the character. I've never done that, where there's literally nothing likable about the character.
Yeah.
And Max Landis wrote this great script, and he's just a jerk, this guy. And I just had so much fun.
Why is it more fun? People always say that it's more fun to play villains. Is it just you get to release?
I think when you're the
side?
protagonist, you're an avatar for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, how many times have you been watching a film and the lead character does something and you're like, I wouldn't do that. Like that doesn't happen when you're watching the bad guy. You're not like, I wouldn't murder someone like that way. So you can just do whatever there's a little bell that goes off when you're going off the reservation and you're the lead.
Right.
Or the good guy or whatever. And then when you're the bad guy, there's no bell. You can just go wherever.
Yeah. What were some of the obstacles you faced in transitioning from TV to film, and how did you get around them?
I think, I kind of spoke that a little bit. I think there's a thing where when you're on something that's successful, you're thinking, should I be capitalizing on this in a certain way? And by the way, the answer might be yes, and I got it wrong. But for me, like when I was doing Traffic, the things I was pushing my agents to get into just had no connection to 70s show. And it's still that way. I still think people, like I'll bump into someone who's a 70s show fan and they're kind of a little bit disappointed. Maybe I haven't done more things in that vein, but I'm very happy doing these kind of things. And so I think the Trap is actually doing too many things that are like the show.
Mm-hmm.
But it's easier. It's certainly way easier at that time.
Yeah.
Because people go, got it, you in here,
Are there things that you still want to do, or there are goals that you still have in your career that you've yet to achieve?
No, I'd like to announce my retirement. This seems like a fitting night to do it. We went through my whole career.
Well,
tons of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share in particular? Or are you superstitious about?
No, I don't even know. I mean, I think maybe a couple of years ago I thought that too. Like, what I really want to do is this. But the truth is, it's all about working with great directors, at least in terms of film. And in TV, it's really about working with great writers. And so no. So, God, I mean, it's really, did I know? I wanted to work with David Michod.
Yeah.
I knew that when I saw Animal Kingdom. I didn't know he'd be doing this movie and there'd be this kind of role in it. So it's much easier for us as, we're all gypsies, right? To say like, okay, I'm going to do, I'll find a way to fit into this to be able to work with this person.
Would you sign on for another long run on a TV series at this point?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I'd love to actually. But I don't know about like a 4-camera sitcom or something. I want to do the show Ashton Danny. I'm on like a campaign to get like a guest star role.
I think you could probably arrange that. I would think.
I mean, let's see.
All right. Well, we'll put it out there on the internet. We'll see what happens.
I know. Come on, guys.
Well, I think that's all the time we have, but thank you so much, Topher.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to my boring life.
Thank you all for coming.